Hello, everybody, and welcome to this chess filled, beautiful day. Hope you're having fun, and the fun has just started. I mean, if you're on the right side of the globe, if you're on the different side of the globe, the fun might just be ending. It is matter of perspective. In any case, you're at the right place, at the right time, just whenever you're looking at game reviews, reviewing games of our dear subscribers. Something everyone all the time thinks about. How can I improve my game? How can I get Hans Niemann to call me and ask me whether I want to learn chess? Probably not. You mostly want to know how to improve the game. Not grow the game, that's a different topic. Mostly how to get better at it. Am I right? Or am I right? Probably. I'm just correct. Hello there, Dritty. How's it going? Hey, Edgar Saint. Hope all is well. Doing good. Doing good. Hey, Gyodor. So, before we actually get into this game reviews, where we're kind of going to have some interactive lessons, so I will be trying to solve your problems, but the best way to learn is if you get and put in your thoughts of what you thought was supposed to happen or was likely to happen. Hello there, Cruzo. So before we do that, I do want to show one of my games and then we shall see. Just started, just have started. Correct, Cruzo. Correct. So, without further ado, let's take a look at this game between the legendary this guy and the legendary that guy. So Boros was playing Christopher Yu. Now, I don't know if you know Christopher Yu is a super talent. He's still not as high rated as he should be, but he's super young, around the age 13, 14. So if you think that there's anybody who has a chance to become a super GM in like 5-6 years, he is one of them. So this game that we're going to start out with is the Boros Yu game. Hello, Arsenar Sakyan. So this game is between me and Christopher Yu, and he's already still in his teenage years. So one of the important things that you've got to decide whenever you're playing a prodigy is what is your goal of the game. And in fact, I'm going to ask you, if you play a prodigy, what are your first thoughts? Because chess is a battle. You've got to be conscious of the fact what you're trying to achieve and what is your mode approaching it. So dear viewers, tell me, how would you approach a game against the prodigy? And this is actually an important question. I'm not asking it just to ask a question to you. It is important. Very important. If you can't answer this, it'll be tough. It'll be tough. These guys are good. These guys are good. Edgar Saint is saying, what I learned, no matter the looks, always be cautious. I learned that the hard way. After 6-7 moves, you will see what the prodigy is capable of. Yoder is saying, try to win. Arsenal Sakyan, prodigy is a super talent, someone who has capabilities that is very hard to deal with. like a young Carlsen. Yeah, prodigies are young talents. So, in this game, I decided, hey, you're playing a young teenager. The best thing you can do is to checkmate them. So play d4, c5, knight f3, d6, d4, takes, knight f6, knight c3, a6, bishop g5. Now bishop g5 I think was a good decision against him because most of the times prodigies love attacking. Do they love being attacked? Not so much. They're not too keen about it. So bishop g5 was a good choice. Can anybody tell me why bishop g5 is such a famous move? Alex, we're not here to make friends. We're here to checkmate our opponents. So a poison pawn, it's famous for this poison pawn variation, but that's not the only thing this line is famous for. It's famous for this match. Oh, that is a slip. Rook b1 obviously is the move. And knight b3 was played many times in the Spassky-Fischer match. And that's something well worth remembering. History follows you around whenever you play this game. So I've heard some people claiming that, yo, chess was invented by an international master. Not really. It was probably invented in the Middle East or India. The debate is still going on. I'm not going to get into that, but it wasn't really invented yesterday. Also, just another little bit of tidbit. If you just go, let's say, bishop e7, always be careful with that, because your lady might just get trapped on b2. Any case, bishop g5 was shocking and actually surprised my young opponent. Knight d7, bishop c4. Now, whenever you get this combination of getting this bishop and this bishop out, it's kind of nice because if they never play e6, you can hope to get doubled pawns. Like here I would take on f6, gf, and with these doubled pawns, white can hope for an advantage. It's not necessarily the case if black plays e6, but one thing that we kind of talk about in these lectures is the fact that sometimes there's sacrifices on e6. Also, black would volunteer to get pinned. And that's something that wants to be and should be avoided. No wonder that you played queen b6, hitting on b2. And the question is how to continue here. Pin him and win him. Correct, Crusoe. How do you hope for an advantage if he has a double pawns? So let's say here, takes. Yeah, eventually you have to attack those weak pawns. So it's not enough to stare at weak pawns and say, hey, it's weak. That's not how it works. Never has. But the way you can go against it is to, let's say, castle and go f4, e5. And once these pawns are gone, the f7 square weakness is going to show. This weakness is going to show. Or even f4, f5, fixing these guys. The main problem is that any of these pawns ever move, they'll create additional weaknesses. So you don't get an immediate advantage from the situation. You're going to capitalize on that much later. So queen b6, now we have to decide how to react. Defend it, sacrifice it. Now, we've got to remember, how did we come into the game? We were just talking about it. So we talked that, hey, maybe the best way to play against this kid is to be aggressive. So if you're aggressive, which type of castling is more beneficial? Long castling or short castling? So, more likely than not, you'll never see long castles in this game. Ever. Because there's not many pawns for black in that case. So it's not an ideal scenario. Therefore, black is going to castle short. Because that's the only place where black has 3 pawns covering and shielding the king. On the king side on the queen side there's only 2, excuse me. So should we want to take the pawn? Let them eat the pawn or give it up? White can castle long. That is a true statement, Arslan Arsakyan. Hello there. So, again, who said sacrifice it? You're wrong. Why are you wrong? Sacrificing is not bad necessarily. However, if you follow the principle of trying to have opposite side castling, if you give up the b2 pawn, that ain't gonna happen. Not this game. Therefore, I played bishop b3, defending, and signaling that I am going to go long. As we talked about it, black is unlikely to do the same. 1, there's a weakness on f7, and 2, the king does feel a little drafty on that side of the board. So I wouldn't go there, and in the majority of cases, they don't do that in these type of positions. e6, queen d2, bishop e7. If black plays knight c5, how can we react to this move knight c5? And this is very important. Hello Lazzi Chess. Hello everyone. So first off, whenever you look at a position, always get noticed and notice the threats of your opponent. What is black trying to achieve? And that's the first question. Don't try to make a move. Try to understand what they're trying to do. Why did they play knight c5? Now understand there's 50 million moves that you can play in a position. However, it doesn't really matter. So there's a good point. They might want to take the bishop. Is that the only thing knight c5 is threatening? So is that knight only goal to take on b3? Is that the only thing? Hello, Liangalan. Nope. To capture on e4. So this knight c5 move would have this function of not only attacking the bishop on b3, but attacking the pawn on e4. Now we understood what our opponent wants to achieve. However, there is a thing that we can do in this position, and that is to take on f6. Because since this knight moved, there's g takes f6. Hey there, Volker boy. And now there's doubled pawns. And in this case, we can do this following flank and just ram our pawns up to f5 and target these weaknesses and doubled pawns on the f file. And just a side note, you couldn't really take on f6 now because the knight would take it back and it would be kind of pointless. You don't want to give up your bishop for nothing. Compare this to this one, this line, knight c5, takes. Black does get the bishop pair, however, there's f-pawn weaknesses in the position. The doubled pawns provide compensation for the bishop pair. And this deserves an exclam because it's a very good move. Castles and then f4, f5. That is the typical plan. Is there something wrong with the knight on a4? Yes, there is. You don't want to put your knight on the rim. I understand you want to exchange off this knight. However, you're removing a very good defender. So this guy on c3 is defending the e4 pawn. When you go here, you put it on the side and it just doesn't function too well. So queen d2, bishop e7, on castles, knight c5. Critical position number 2. The e4 pawn is attacked. If we take on f6, this is a different situation. The bishop is on e7 and black could take it back with the bishop. So the big question is, how should we defend it? And then that will be kind of related with our future plans. Martinkov, the problem with your knight a4 move is that you're trying to achieve something temporary and ruining the position for the long term. So let me reply to that one. Yes, this knight a4 does attack the queen and the knight. However, you create a chronic weakness on e4. And that is one of the things you don't want to do. Knight c5, and here comes the big question. So how should we defend it? And if we defend it that way, what will be our future plans? So oftentimes in the middle game, what matters most that your move is coherent and it has a plan for the future. Okay, so I see rook e1 and I see f3. Now, when you're thinking about your own moves, you really have to consider what your opponent is trying to do. What is black going to do in the upcoming few moves? What's going to probably happen? Folks are saying rook e1. I don't like f3 because it takes away square for the knight. The knight doesn't belong to f3, just telling you. Straight off the bat. So black is going to castle. Does it make sense to bring in the rook to e1 if they're going to castle anyways? So, it is white to move, lyrical chess. So it's white to move. Now, rook e1 and f3, to be honest with you, they're relatively the same strengths. So even though I'm trying to make an argument for one of them, it is not like it is a matter of style. So there's no solutions in chess, just many roads to a different conclusion. f3, 1. Engage, saying f3, let us start on pawn push. So the reason I don't like rook e1, and in fact I was kind of hinting at it, that black is going to castle and then your rook is staring at something that's not there. It's just not there and ain't doing too much. However, it does prepare ideas such as f4, and you can play for e5 maybe. On the other hand, you will create some weaknesses. Notice that this e-pawn just doesn't have something that supports you. It doesn't have an f3 pawn that supports the e-pawn. So f3, and the reason I played f3 is the following. I'm going to start rushing with my pawns with g4, h4. So if castles happen, my rook is in fact ideally placed on h1. So even though these little moves seemingly don't make any difference, it actually does. Why? Because in that case, my rook will be firing without actually being moved. Alexkov, thank you for the follow. Castles, king b1. King b1 is this typical move. Oftentimes, there are problems on the c file, and knight takes b3 is a check. Therefore, I move my king away, so there's no funny business coming around. Queen c7, g4, b5, and again, I've got to stop these pawns from rolling. Played a3, stopping this b4 move. Bishop d7, h4, queen b6, and now I sort of decided that an attack is way more important than the bishop pair. And that might seem a little contradictory, however, in this case it makes a lot of sense. Played bishop takes f6. Can anybody explain to me what could be the idea behind bishop takes f6? And I think this was a good move. But that's my honest opinion. Bean is saying g5. Alex saying g5. Let's just saying g5. But what's the point of g5 in general? I do understand you win a tempo, but so what? Why do you need the tempo for? So let's try to think about ideas and why do we make these moves. Let's think more than one move ahead. Yep, you're trying to roll with those pawns. Correct, Martin Koch. Exactly. So I take. The reason I take, because I can go g5 now. Hitting the bishop, you take here. There's actually a weakness on d6, which oftentimes you don't realize, because most of the time black retains that bishop. However, if black mindlessly exchanges pieces, often that d6 pawn is too weak, like in this case. Bishop e7, h5. And the big piercing move is g6, which will be extremely unpleasant because my bishop and knight is eyeing this e6 square. a5, g6. Just going all in. Obviously, you can't really take all of these guys because there's queen h2 and the attack is near decisive. The queen and these guys are just way too far away from the king side. What if black plays h6 though? It's not over, lyrical chess. Obviously, it is not over. Nobody really claimed that. Boom goes the rook. You take. Queen takes h6. And because of this pawn on g6, I always have this checkmate. You can't really go here because then I'll roll all the way and promote mate. This is sort of that double checkmate we're all hoping for. Also, you can go this direction because there's queen f7 checkmate. But even though queening can also win, however, it's not mate yet. But it's always nice to checkmate with two queens. Always working for GMs, not for you? Well, that's why we're learning. That's why we're learning how to play it properly. Now here my opponent really should have played h6, but he decided to go for counterplay. Now, I give it an exclamation mark for practical value. Because you do want to distract white from his attack. And if not for the upcoming moves, I think used counterplay would have crashed through. However, my attack is just too strong. So white to move. Let's try to find a way to crash through in this position. It's not like immediately winning, but if we can find a way to come closer to this king. Now, whenever we're looking at these attacking positions, we've got to pinpoint where would be the potential checkmate. And I don't like that attitude, Alex. You have to calculate yourself. If you're not calculating, you're doing things wrong. Chess is about precision. h6, what if I take on c3? h6, I take that knight. And I do tell you, when I was playing this game, I was making sure I spent enough time to be precise. I didn't just rattle out my moves. I took time to understand what's going on. Okay, h6. Takes, and I hide my king. So Gyodor, can you make it like one sentence? You don't have to type it out, like type out every move. You can put it in one sentence. It works that way, I promise. So we're looking at this one at the moment. So here, takes, here. Now, if black is not checkmated, we're down a piece and we're crying inside. So we're either crying, Gyodor, or we're happy. It's your choice. We still have to crash through. And I don't see it quite yet. So takes, queen h6 check. The king goes back. And I don't see the mate just yet. Rook g1, still king h8. Engage. There's one important tidbit here, and I think Jim Volker is up to something. Can you explain it a bit more? Hello, super smart. So promote. Okay, let's promote to bishop. Rook takes. Check. If you go here, the rook would eat that queen, and that's not good. Check. You go here, it's gonna be checkmate. And if you go here, queen g5 mate. So that h8 is actually one of those key moves that I had to see when I played h6. So in fact, correcto, that's why I played this. So a great find. Great find by Jim Walker. As rook takes, check, king f6, queen g5 wins. So this was an important thing. If I didn't see this one, I wouldn't go for h6. Now, there could be many other ways to play it, but this is possibly the way to go. So this game is between me and Christopher Yu. I'm playing white. h6, bishop f6. A nice little move. The point being, if white is going to start taking stuff, there's bishop g7, and with a bishop on g7, it's very hard to checkmate, while this attack is seemingly very fast. So I had to come up with a very precise idea in this position. Chess, can you keep it English, please? So we can include others in the talk. I don't mind Hungarian in general, but I would appreciate it. So Alex is saying, I've always played intuitive chess, trying to improve my intuition, but maybe that's not the right thing to do since I can't calculate in depth. So here, oftentimes, in these sharp positions, you've got to imagine where the mate would land. So can you spot some mating patterns? And that's very important. If you can, my next move won't strike you as unbelievably hard or risky. So where would the mate land? Which square? H7. That's how I found Queen H2. And I realized, yes, you have these threats, but they don't really do anything. I can just take on G7. Note that if I take here, whoop, I'm lost. Because the H file is closed and there's no way to pass through. So what was critical is that I open up the H file and then my queen will land on H7 and it's checkmate. Takes and it's mate. And if you don't take, then these pawns will take away those runaway squares from the king. You go here and Queen H7 mates again. So Michelangelo, the problem is oftentimes King H8 is the strong move. And then there's very hard time or nearly impossible to checkmate the black king. And if I don't checkmate, I'm the one losing. My opponent played rook b8, hg, and now I activate my guy. Bishop takes g7, g takes f7, king takes f7, and now we've got to find another beautiful strike, and then my attack will be crushing through. So whenever you're suspicious that your attack is a tad bit slow, then you might realize what to do. If you don't have enough guys attacking, always bring in some heavy ammunition. So from a logical standpoint, let's try to solve it from a logical view. How many defenders does black have? How many defenders does black have around the king? Only one. Well, only the piece and the pawn, but mostly the bishop on g7. That dragon bishop is the one guarding his majesty. Is there a chance that black is going to survive without that bishop? Arsen Arsakian saying no. Mimalanjo says rook g1. That doesn't sound like answering the question though. Not a chance, says Jim Walker. Plan to sack the exchange. Oh, so that's your plan, I see. So chess is partly calculation, understanding, and being a strategizing warlord. If you're not a strategizing warlord, I'm sorry, but this is not the game for you. Now, you can calculate and try to find moves. You can play queen f4. You can play queen h5. You can play rook g1. But these are moves. These are merely moves without an idea behind them. If there's no idea behind them, it doesn't matter if they work objectively. You've got to make it work on the board. Also, doesn't rook g1 lose this knight on d4? That's kind of my issue with that move. Me playing chess sound badass, Theodore, because it is badass. No, so black can't survive without the bishop. So now as we pinpointed that without this bishop, there's no life for black, then it's obvious my next move should be knight f5. The computer might scream at you and me and everybody around you that, hey, knight f5 is not my favorite. And I understand. Computers have no feelings and they have no life. So that does happen. However, knight f5 is near clincher. Because once I take on g7, it's checkmate, bye-bye. There's not much you can do about it. It's just Tova. So that is kind of the easiest way to break through. Yes, you can calculate impossible lines, but you're not a computer, unless you are, and in that case, high 2100s and the next century. So b takes c3, queen h7, and the reason this works because all of Christopher's pieces are scattered on the queen side while I'm checkmating on g7. Note you can't take on f5 because my bishop is pinning the king. So now you can actually see how my bishop and knight works so well together. There, rook g8. Now it is time for us to decide how to overload these guys, and that will be the clincher. Because even in winning positions, believe it or not, you've got to make a decision which way you want to go. No, even in blitz, believe it or not, Lotzi Chess, you've got to use your brain. So whenever you look at this position, can you tell me if black really has a threat or not? Is there any threats from black? Not a single one. Not a single threat. So if black has no threats, and our goal was to capture the g7 bishop, then we should get on the g file. Rook g1. I brought this rook to g1 specifically because the other guy is doing some business, putting pressure on the d6 square. And what you guys are kind of missing a little bit is that you're looking for tricks and ways to capitalize on your advantage immediately. However, the main goal of knight f5, queen h7 was to capture the old defending bishop on g7. So I'm keeping to my plan because I know if I get all of my guys and if I manage to take on g7, mate is unavoidable. There are many other ways that you can win a game, but if you mix up many ideas, eventually you might confuse yourself. I'm not saying knight h6 can be winning, but rook g1 is the easiest move I can find and it's still winning. Why complicate matters when you're already in the driver's seat? Note if takes, and there's rook g7, takes, and queen e7 mate. And that wasn't such a great and hard calculation, was it? Cruzo, good point. Why go for material advantage when you got mate in 12? Exactly. King e8, so he's running. Rook takes d6, bringing in my rook, hitting the queen, and then I'm going to start capturing stuff. Knight g7. King here. If my opponent takes here, I have rook takes g7, takes, then rook g8, and either Christopher loses his queen, or it's technically a mate if you don't give up your queen, but if you do, then you lose the whole house. So you played king f8, and the last and final touch. And after that, black resigned. There's nothing stronger than checkmate. Super smart. At least, that's what I heard that Grishuk used to say. And I agree. There's nothing as strong as checkmate. Okay, let's do a poll. So one of those things that you guys don't do quite yet is look for your opponent's moves. That's one of the most important things to look at. If you're not anticipating your opponent's moves, you can often get into trouble. And be honest with you, probably there's many ways to win this game. However, there's some easy solutions. And when you're winning, the one thing that you really want to do is not to get into potential trouble. The computer might show you that, hey, this is completely winning and gives you some incredible line. However, you're at the board, you have only one antenna and that's up here. And if you can't figure it out, then that's a problem. Now knight e6, I didn't play this one. And the reason is the following. This one defends the rook. And if you take, I actually didn't consider this one. Probably this is the clincher. But I'll tell you why I didn't go for this line. So one of the things is you're falling for the trap of bishop e6, immediately defending the rook. 2. If I take on g8, there's king e7. And now it's not at all that clean. It's already jumbled up. So you've got to be very precise if you play knight takes e6. Sept, thank you for the follow. So if I don't find rook f6 check here, I'm not even winning or hardly winning. However, when I played rook takes d7, it is clear I'm completely winning. Why? Because if you don't capture, then knight takes e6 is just mate. So check, here, checkmate. And if you take this, then I have knight takes e6 check. Here, takes knight f8, rook takes f8, checkmate. In fact, after rook takes d7, Christopher Yu resigned. And computers don't really tell you the difference between these two lines. So whenever I play rook d7 in this position, it's very easy to find these moves that I just showed you. It's all check, check, checkmate. So like takes, check, here, check, check, and it's mate. So I don't have to calculate and be nervous about messing the position up. You take here, bishop e6, you've got to be extremely precise. Here, like, even this endgame is possibly winning, but why not win the game in style with rook takes d7? What's your question? Super smart, I do not understand. I don't get it. I don't know what you're saying. So I was trying to go for the cleanest line. Smart chess. That's what I'm trying to say. So I'm trying to go for the cleanest one where I was pretty sure I'm checkmating. When I played knight takes g7, I was just making sure that it is mate. Yes, maybe this is not the most precise. However, I was confident that this is just completely winning. So when I chose knight g7, rook takes d7, I came to the conclusion that from a human perspective, this is resignable. Now there could be better moves from a computer's standpoint. However, this one just wins the game as there's no way to refute it. I was making sure that this is correct. There was a no button, Lottie Chess. There's always a no button. Alright, so this was the warm-up, and now we're going to get into the sub-game review. If we get some time, we might look at some other games as well. When you played knight g7, did you definitely see rook d7? Yes, I did. So, without further ado, let's start with this game by Myodor. Here. Okay. So this was a 15 plus 15 game. So if you have any ideas and thoughts about it, can you explain your thought process, or at least do insert your thoughts if you had any at that moment? So e4, let's start. Myodor was playing white, knight c6. This is the Nimzovich. This is a second-rate opening, and let's be honest here. Second-rate openings are not good because they can be punished. Hey, Cots Chess. I know that Gyodor is white, but that's what I'm saying. So, knight c6. d4, e5, and your next move, I know, doesn't really qualify as a mistake. However, it is something that you shouldn't do. Oftentimes, you get a chance to capitalize on your opponent's mistakes, and there's no guarantee they'll ever come back. So chat, if you were white here, what would you play? And do tell me, why would you do it? So I see lots and lots of d5. The other thing, so I've played against this guy a lot and he has bested me almost every time, so that's why I played something safe. Some username is saying gain space. I play knight f3. Make the knight move, attack knight. Knight f3 does transpose, that is correct, SLW. I'd let me get provoked to d5, d5 to gain more control. So apart from d5 and knight f3, there's a third option. Does that make any sense? d5 does grab a lot of, gets more space. Notice that there's pressure, immediate pressure on the pawn. So you've got to rectify the situation. If you don't, there'll be issues. If you go bishop b5, you lose the pawn. Ken might actually consider taking on e5. I'm kind of sad that you guys didn't mention d takes e5. Because d takes e5 is a very sound move from a positional standpoint. What is the benefit of taking on e5? d5 is a very good move. Of course, you're gaining space and you're pushing the knight away. But d takes e5 is just as good. What is the advantage from a chess principle perspective? What does d takes e5 achieve that d5 doesn't really achieve? It achieves space advantage, but doesn't achieve the same thing that d takes e achieves. The box. What's going on in the box? No central control for black. So in fact, d takes e5 makes a lot of sense here. So when you take, white is the only one controlling these four squares, and if knight e5, you can go knight f3 or f4. In both cases, A, you're winning time. B, you still control these important squares in the center. So I do understand that most of us are used to d5. However, d takes e5 is also a principled idea. Central control, indeed, Gyodor. And this knight is wasting a lot of moves. So from a principled standpoint, and if you want to be better, try to make the best move possible in every position. Here you played knight f3, and that's not wrong. It's not a bad move, but you're dropping the chance of getting an advantage. So if you play d5, at least you would get more space because your pawn is already on the fifth. Black doesn't have any of those. Or d takes c5, and in that case, you've got more pawns in the center. When you play knight f3, you're kind of saying, hey, I forgive you for that trespassing that you just did, and you get back into a first rate opening. ed, knight d4, knight takes c6, queen f6, queen f3, this is a line, dc, bishop e2, bishop e6, castle, castle, bishop e3. I really like this bishop e3 move. It was a very good move. Can anybody tell me why bishop e3 is so good here? What's the point of bishop e3 in this particular position? So bishop e3 challenges the bishop, that's one thing. But in fact, this move is much deeper than you give it credit for. It exchanges pieces when the endgame is probably winning. So White's long-term strategy is to exchange off the whole board, all of these pieces, and in that case, the pawn endgame is just pure winning for White. So that's why bishop e3 is such a strong move. Not only does it get rid of a strong bishop of Black's, it also is getting closer to the higher truth or aims for the right kind of ending. Bishop e3, queen e3, king b8, b4. And I like b4. Sort of trying to put pressure on the king. Knight f6, f3. Yes, trying to defend against that. However, if you think about it, when you played b4, what was your idea, Gyodor? How do I know? You just know. From these books that you read, you know that an extra pawn in the pawn endgame is winning. Let's go back to this b4 question. Why did you play b4 there, Gyodor? What was your plan? a4? You wanted to push a4? Because the reason I'm asking this, oftentimes what matters most is consistency. You played b4 and you want to do the pawn storm. Now you played f3. You see what I'm talking about? You're playing one move here and then you're playing one move there. Now you're either going for checkmate or you don't go for checkmate. Now I do understand you want to take away that knight g4 jump. However, these inconsistencies are the ones that will lead to trouble. Yes, sometimes our plans are flawed, but the easiest way to learn and become better in chess is to follow through with your plans. You played b4, and b4 had an idea behind it. So it would have made more sense to play b5 here, immediately opening it up for the rook, or play a4 and just pursue the same plan. And yes, that doesn't always work, but that's how you better your game. When you follow a plan, that's how you get better. If you play a little move here and a little move there, then you actually not really following a plan. You're just playing random moves on one side and the other side. I don't know if that is understandable, or if you understand what I'm saying there. Not that f3 is that bad. Rook e8, a4. Okay, so that's good. You did follow after that one, so that's good. Bishop h3, rook f2. Not blundering, mate. That's good. Knight d5, takes. Bishop d3, d4, bishop e6. f4. And here comes again the big question. I'm just curious, why did you play f4 here? And I might seem critical, Gyodor, but I'm just really trying to gauge of your thinking process. I'm not trying to be harsh. I'm just trying to understand your way of thinking. So you played f4 here. Why didn't you play b5? Oh, you're trying to fork. So again, I think the best thing that you can do is to remember your old plan and try to follow through there. I kind of feel that you're chasing butterflies when in fact you already had an idea of just ramming through on the queen side. And suddenly you're trying to play on the side where black is trying to play. f5, that's a very strong move, by the way, by black. He is trying to exchange because he notices on the middle of the board he would be the one doing well. e5, bishop d5, and suddenly black has very good pieces. And if he manages to undermine this e5 pawn, black will be doing all right. The other saying, that's okay, I understand, it's constructive criticism. Okay, I'm happy here. Good on that. So yeah, now the problem is that this bishop is way better than it was before. Let's just scoot back a little bit. In this position, this bishop can't really put any pressure on the king. However, a few moves later, it is actually quite powerful. c4, bishop e4, queen c2, h5. Probably not the best. I would think that you could go rook g8 and plan this g5 break. Goes h5, rook e2, trying to get rid of this bishop, and that's a good move, very nice move there. You're just trying to get rid of this pesky little bishop from that square. e4, h4, rook e1. So some username is talking about some computer. So the thing is, computers don't care about logic. And they don't need logic because they find the best move because that's all that they're looking for. So as a human, the more coherent your plan is, the better. Because we are kind of wired to follow plans. Computers follow best moves. And they can get away of playing on both sides of the board. Is it viable? Of course it's viable because the computers can get away with it. It's true. But as humans, we should strive for something that we can understand. So we're not strong enough or irrational enough to play that surreal chess that computers play. It is viable, but it's very hard to do so as a human. Hello, 3. Rook e1. And again, probably you should still start pushing on this side of the board. I do like that you're not reacting to h3, because you always have g3 and there's not much problem that can happen there. Rook e1, rook e6, just blocking this. I wanted to push the pawn, I guess. c5. Now instead of c5, you could have tried to go b5, a5, and a6. Sort of similar to what your opponent is trying to do. So if you go, let's say b5, a5, let's say queen h5, a6, this can often create this mating net on b7 together with the a6 and the queen pawn. I mean the pawn and the queen. So I think even though c5 is not a bad idea, the best way to attack is either to go the same way I did in my game against Christopher Yu with b5, a5, and b6, or just push it up to a6. You were very scared of his d-pawn, so didn't want to trade queens. Yeah, you don't need to trade queens. You're okay with that, and in fact your queen is doing great there because this d-pawn is blocked. However, instead of c5, I think you should have tried this plan of piercing through black's position with a5, a6. c5, queen h6, queen c4, rook f2. There, didn't you have this idea of taking this pawn? Ah, there's rook f8 maybe, and take on f4. Huh? Okay, here, rook f2, g5, and if we stop right here, we can really say that you lost momentum. Or as white, we lost momentum. You had a great position, but you wasted the moment with your moves rook e1, c5, and queen c4. Instead of creating more threats, you gave time for your opponent to attack you on the king side with h5, h4, and queen h6, g5. And suddenly your opponent is taken over for that reason. And that is the reason I think you need to be more aggressive when you get a good position. b5, but I think it's getting too late. g4, e6, and this sort of runs into g3. Probably your best move would have been rook f1, and it kind of leads into a funny situation. In fact, black has no way to crash through. If he plays g3, you play h3, and there's no open files for the rooks. The same goes with h3. You would never want them to take any of the pawns, the g2 or h2 pawns, because then black would invade. You don't want that to happen. So here, probably your last moment to, stay in game was to play rook f1 and avoid g3. And in this case, the rook is not attacked and you can go play h3 yourself. Did you consider rook f1 here, Gyodor? No? Yeah, so here rook f1 would have been better for that case. In fact, this is, again, referring back to my game against Christopher Yu, this is an opposite side castling position. Whoever can open up the position in front of the opponent's king is going to win. So here it was very important to play this move and avoid this g3 piercing idea. So e6 played, but g3 is just too strong now, because black will either take the rook or the pawn. Obviously, you're not going to give the rook, but after that, there'll be too many files open. 6, rook h8. Probably your best I still would have been rook takes g3. Normally you don't want to open up the h file. So rook g3 takes rook g2 is better, where your king still has a hiding space on h1. You did go h takes g. H takes G. Just a second. H takes G. Rook H8. And the problem is that now black is coming in. There, takes, rook takes, check, queen D1. And now your pieces are way too discoordinated. Pieces are coming in. Probably even rook G1 doesn't work because there's check here. And you're going to lose the rook. Queen E2, then there's just rook G2. So it's already agonizing here. Takes C8. He's kind of misplaying this. Takes C6, takes. But even though he's misplaying it, your king is just too weak. Takes, check, check, check. And queen F1, queen D3, and this is just losing. Takes, and this is just lost. You resigned. So I think that the idea and the thing that you should have been doing is to attack quicker. One, you have to realize that your opponent is trying to break through with G3. That's the way if you want to avoid the attack, or go for this A5, A6 idea. I think that's what you could have done better. So you didn't do bad, Gyodor, but you really need to keep up speed with your attacks. It's very important. Makes sense, says Gyodor. Thanks. Yeah, you're welcome. All right, so next game. Again, if you guys are interested in such things and these lectures and arenas, do feel free to sub or follow. And with that, let's take a look at the next game between K-Dasher and Killer Stapler. Okay. Goldilocks is saying this analysis was gold. It was, says Gyodor. I'm happy. I'm glad you guys liked it. At least try to follow through one plan, yes, Lyrical Chess, and start from there. So this game is between K-Dasher and Killer Stapler. This is a 30 plus 20 game. E4, knight f6. So we're seeing the Alekhine. It's still, again, not the best move. Here, knight d5, knight b6, d3. Mistake. White should have played d4. White should take advantage of having more pawns there. Volpip, thank you for following. So if you're just come in here, we are looking at subscribers games, and I'm trying to give advice what to do. Now, here, White played d3. And whenever you play the Alekhine, or you play the Grunfeld, there's one particular idea. And one particular idea, mostly, you have the luxury of undermining the position. So you go, and you should go d6. Because with a big center comes a big responsibility. This e5 pawn is a potential target. How is Alekhine and Grunfeld related? So I'll show you. So d4, knight f6, g4, c4, g6, knight c3, d5. Now, in this position, from a strategical point of view, White is the one with the advantage. He has the 2 pawns in the center and is just chilling. However, Black will be able to undermine the center right there on d4. And yes, Black has few pawns in there. He does have enough pressure to counterbalance White's big center. And in this sense, it's very much the same thing. So like in this game, e5, c4, d3. Here killer stapler should have gone d6, takes, can take with the pawn, or if you're in a fighting mood, take with d6, g6, go bishop g7, castle, and again play against the d4 pawn. Now obviously the Grunfeld is much more sound than the Alekhine, but the concept is the same. Black is trying to undermine White's grandiose center. And that is kind of the similarity between the two. c4, e6. Now e6 is not a good move. Can anybody tell me what's wrong with e6 here in this specific case? It blocks the bishop on c8. So you're not only playing a bad Alekhine, you're playing a terrible French. Because you put this knight all the way to b6, and you're still kind of saddened with this bishop. And a lot of times, d6 at least gives you the option to activate this bishop and get a better version of either the French or the Caro-Kann. So that's why e6 is such a terrible move here. That's why you must go d6, and that's more in the spirit of the Alekhine. You want to be very aggressive and undermine White's center. But anyways, let's continue. d4, d5, trying to close it up, which is fine. Also trying to claim stake of this position. C takes d5, a terrible move by White. White should keep it closed, because with this bishop still being very passive, White would have an overwhelming advantage with a big center. However, c takes d5 gave this option, knight takes d5, which is a good move. Now, black has a very nice knight, supported by the charger pawn. And now that knight is actually quite happy. Knight c3, c5. And I like the way Killer Stapler plays this part of the game. He is trying to challenge White's center. And that is the way you're supposed to play the Alekhine. You're supposed to challenge your opponent. So SLW is saying, I feel like the advice is secretly don't play Alekhine if you don't know the theoretical lines in it. No, you can play it. Just keep in mind that your goal is to undermine your opponent's center. If you don't know that core concept, then don't play the Alekhine. c5 is good. Bishop b5 check, and that's not good. Bishop b5, knight c6. And knight c6 is a mistake. In general, in a position where you're cramped, what are you supposed to do? What is the thing that you're supposed to do? Bishop b5 check is not a good move, by the way. White should have just developed and tried to use the fact that he has more space. Let's say takes, 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 takes. And because this bishop is still very passive, say here, you don't want to blunder this cutie little idea, winning the queen. So let's say something like a3. And white is better because there's already a pawn on the 5th rank and it is just much easier to play with some extra space. So Chet is saying trade pieces. Yep, you should be trading pieces 100%. Just like the poll says, 100%. So here bishop d7 would have been much better, because with every exchange the position gets much more comfortable. King Archer is asking, could you technically play e takes d5? I guess here. You can take on d5, but normally you would love to have a piece in the center, especially when it is supported. So I see nothing wrong with knight takes d5. In fact, I think that's one of the best ways to play this position. c5, knight c6, takes, which is good. You want to exchange here, and in fact, again, taking would have been better. Just trying to exchange as many pieces as possible. In fact, just queen a5 check here. So that doesn't even work. This would win the piece. Let's say takes, bc, cd. After bishop b4, I think black is very close to be fine here. Maybe even more. But takes, bishop d7. And bishop d7 neglects one important part of chess principles. What are you supposed to do once you take hold of the center? And this is the chess principle you should never ever forget, and probably the most important one. Castle. You must castle. And instead of bishop d7, either taking or playing bishop e7 should have been a priority. Black already kind of established himself in the center. It's time to castle. Queen e2, a6, bishop d3. Again, plenty of moves, not helping to castle. In fact, helping white to get this bishop to a much better square, where it can potentially launch an attack. Bishop e7, bishop d2, castle, castle, b5. Still, c takes d4 would have been good, and black can probably survive. Maybe even get knight b4 and just slalom that knight to d5. Even that is a little sketchy. b5, bishop e4, b4, bishop takes c5, and like, if you don't castle quick enough, punishment is more than likely to show up at your doorstep. So it's white to move and crash through. And that is kind of the warning. Castle quickly. Super quickly. Indeed. H7 Pogu. Greek gift time. Boom. And suddenly all these guys are swarming in and there's no saving. Takes. If takes, then there's knight g5 check, king g8, then there's queen h5. And sadly, there's no way you can run away. You're just gonna get checkmated. And the f7 is also hanging. Note that your pieces are just barricading the exit squares, so the king can't really run away. Now another side note. Takes, you always capture the pieces. You always take on h7. Better or not, you always have to take. That you always have to call the bluff. Chess in this sense is a lot like poker. The only way you'll find out what's happening if you call it. If you don't call it, you'll never find out what your opponent is trying to do. Here. Now sadly it's lost. Now you're losing. Here, check. Here you could, this is the way you can still try to escape. However, checks here, check, 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 and checkmate. But at least you can see that black really had to, I mean, not black, but white actually had to walk a tightrope to win this game. At least had to show that this is the reason why I'm winning. So in hindsight, I do think as black, you should capture the bishop. Here, unfortunately, h4 is coming, and after h5, there'll be plenty of nasty checks and checkmates. So let's say takes, check, here, knight takes e6, double check, and you're also losing the queen. King g6 is also a try, but objectively, both of them is losing. So what I'm saying, always take. Better or worse, call. You've got to call the bluff. Even if it's not a bluff, but at least you tried. Yeah, king g6 is still the most practical. However, because the king is way too open, it is probably just checkmate. So king h8 was played here, takes, but this is just agony, and it's checkmate. So there's two things that we learned from this game. One, if you play the Alekhine, you've got to play against your opponent's center. You've got to undermine the center. Mine the center. And always call your opponent's bluff. If you don't do it, you're just going to lose like this, which is not pleasant. I can testify this is not pleasant. And as a chess player, this happens to everybody. Sure thing. Sure thing. Omar's time. Happy to give those tips. All right. Next game. Also, guys, if you are enjoying these games, these analyses, feel free to join us at this link. Some username is saying, whenever I play Danish, a wild Greek gift appears. So, if you're interested and you want to get these games of yours being reviewed, feel free to sub to our channel, because we're going to make this thing a bit more general. So these Saturdays, I'm planning to do these game reviews. So if you're interested, do check us out on our Discord and Facebook. If you're interested in these topics, lectures, and arenas. All right. Let's go with this game between Edgar Saint and Noblex. Okay, so Edgar Saint is playing white. This was a 10-minute game. e4, e5, d4, takes. So another Scotch. Everyone's playing the Scotch now. Wow. Scotch times everywhere. Crazy. Knight b3, bishop b6, bishop c4. Now bishop c4, even though is wonderful in every variation, like the Italian, the Spanish, it's fine. In this specific case, it's not that good. Why? Because in this case, this move of knight e5 is actually strong. It hits the bishop, and the knight, in fact, is ideally placed there. It can sometimes even threaten knight g4. Let's say you go here, d6, knight c3, knight g4, and suddenly there'll be plenty of threats on all of those squares. And I know this looks a little bit like beginner chess, but this is a true threat. Computers would agree that knight g4, queen h4 is very dangerous. So one of the things that you shouldn't underestimate in the Scotch is these knight d5 ideas. So even though bishop c4 would be a decent move, in any other case, here it doesn't really work that well. If you really want to put this bishop out, there's two places you can put it. Can anybody guess at least one square you can put that bishop, where it would actually enjoy itself? Hello, Arat Flash. How's it going? You can put it on g2, although it is very time consuming. Now some of you may mention bishop e2. It's a little bit passive. The one I was thinking about is more bishop d3, defending the e4 pawn and preparing castling. Oftentimes the issue with bishop e2 that this can run into these sort of double attacks, and your pawn on e4 is not defended. Hello, Riveting Cat. So bishop c4. So my idea would be either put the bishop on d3 or go for this g3 bishop g2. Anyways, you went for bishop c4, which works out in the game. However, if your opponent had found knight d5, you would have problems. Knight f6, knight c3, d6, bishop g5. And bishop g5 is a very nice move. And I give you full credit for this one. You're pinning your opponent's knight, can't move, the queen would be hanging. And now your bishop is functioning quite well on c4. Sort of like a Catalan, kind of. It's not exactly like it, Edgar Saint. Like, if you're interested, mostly those are from Sutovsky games, where you get those g3 Scotch positions. So if you're wanting to play with g3 bishop g2, that's the one that I would be checking out. So back to the game. Queen e7, f3, very good. Stabilizing the center, and in fact, f3 signals something. And I'm curious if you chat know what white is intending to do. Does white Alex is saying, I've heard this name so many times I thought Sutovsky is a meme. No, Sutovsky is a fantastic tactical player. And as we mentioned, the Grunfeld before, he's famous for beautiful, beautiful attacking games. Now, he became a chess politician, but he is mostly known for those games. So white is going to go long castling, correct. There's no targets there. You can't castle short. The bishop is just opened up after f3. Now f3 would be very much suicidal if not for the option that I can go and castle long. h6, bishop h4, g5, bishop g3. Funnily enough, you can even go here, takes, and do what we usually call castling with mano, so castling with hands. So if go here, rook e1, and the king will comfortably walk to g1 and have a good position. However, there's nothing wrong with bishop g3. White is planning to go queen d2 long castles, and with one more pawn in the center is likely to stand a little better. Knight h5, Knight d5. Now, knight h5 was a terrible mistake. After bishop e6 and let's say long castles, white might be a little bit better because of extra space and the control of the d5 square, but it's not the end of the world and black can still continue on with the fight. However, knight h5 was a terrible mistake, because then now knight d5 is coming. Not only you're losing this strong bishop, but you lose that with a tempo as the queen is under attack. Played queen e6, which was terrible, and this runs into an immediate refutation. This is just too bad. No checkmate yet. Could be a check. It could be a check. Yep. Knight takes c7 check, winning the queen, because once this knight jumps away, the queen is under attack. You could even consider knight takes b6, because it wins a bishop. If you take, then the queen is hanging, and the rook will hang at the end. So both are actually just completely winning. Edgar Sain decided to take there. Takes, bishop f2, castles, knight d4, knight f5, knight takes, and proceeded to collect everything. c4. And one of the things that he does well is that he never loses the initiative. So even if you're winning, even if you have more pieces, you still should play like you're having a normal position. You still should continue with the attack. So you should really be looking for the attacks even when ahead. Here, takes fearless as the king marches into the center. Now that's a bit too much. You did not need to do that. Not at all. It is still a courageous thing to do and is winning because you're up a whole queen, but you didn't need to do that. You could have just gone g3 and there's no funny business. One of the things that you have to remember, that you want to be the one pushing even when you're up the piece or a rook or a queen. When you expose your king, there's a higher chance to get checkmated. So c takes d5, even though it's still winning, the fact that you're bringing your king closer to your opponent's pieces is not the brave. I mean, it's brave, but it is not necessarily the smartest thing to do. g3, king e3, takes, check, check, and this is just game over, as the rook is going to c1 and queen d8, checkmate. So all in all, a decent game by you. I liked how you played. Everything was on the right direction. However, do remember your bishop does not belong to c4. Also, that you need to provide king safety even when you have the advantage. And I do hope that was a help. Alright, so the next game, which is a big upset, Vlad was beaten by Kasper. Vlad, who is a very strong 2300 Lichess rated player, was going down. This is an interesting game sent by Kasper. So let's take a look at it. Edgar Saint is saying, thank you a lot for the compliments and the advice, Dinesh. I'm certainly learning a lot. Thank you. Everything noted. Glad. Hope You will learn from it. Okay, so e4, c6, just a Caro-Kann, takes, bishop d3. This is famous. This is a very famous line. This was cultivated by none other than Fischer versus Petrosian, which kind of netted him an important win and later on the title. Knight f6, knight f3, bishop g4. And this is the reason why the Caro-Kann is such a hype opening these days. You can get rid of the bishop and then play e6. So it's sort of a better version of the French. Castles, e6, c3, bishop d6, bishop g5. Everyone spinning, everybody. Knight d2, knight d7, queen c2. So there is the sneaky threat of bishop takes h7. So if black goes here, is bishop h7 check. You can't quite capture it because you lose the queen. That's why pins are so powerful. So black plays queen b6. But as we will note, the fight is not going to revolve around the b2 square, but a different one. Can anybody pinpoint what is the most critical square in this position? The e5 square. Now the h7 was just temporary because once black moves the queen away, that's not a target. You take, black can take back, and that pawn is defended. Now, queen b6 is not a good move because that's not going to be that weak. There's always rook b1 and it's unlikely to be lost. So I would consider queen c7 instead, controlling that e5 square, because that's the one which will decide the game. If you control that square, you will be the one being better. Queen b6. So rook e1 is a good move by white, trying to control that square. A6, h3, and probably this wasn't accurate. White should have tried knight e5, and then this would lead to a hefty advantage for the white player. Brian the Rabbit, thank you for subscribing, returning. Subscribe for 3 months on a 3-month streak. Hey Chesswib, hey chat, hey there, good to see you. So now knight e5 is coming, and this would have been a problem. That is why Kasper should have played queen c7, controlling that square. Here, but white misses it. h3, bishop takes f3. Now, in general, keeping the tension is the best move. However, this is still kind of a better version of this game. And when you play bishop h5, you can, at times, think about neutralizing that bishop on d3. So bishop h5, bishop g6 makes a lot of sense here. Took, take, rook c8, getting the rook to the open files. And that is the thing that you're supposed to do. Queen e2, rook e8, rook d1. Again, white misses the chance to jump to e5. Here, and knight e4 was a clever idea, using the fact that the b2 is loose and threatened. Bishop e4, de, queen e4, queen takes b2. And now the situation has changed radically. And if we talk about radical changes, what has changed? So let's stop here and observe just a little bit. What has changed since? Is there any weaknesses in white's position? The c pawn's a weakness, and the d and c pawn can get a little loose. The d pawn, the d4 pawn, and the c3 pawn are weak. These are called the hanging pawns because they don't have any protection. That protector on b2 has fallen. And to be totally honest with you, this is completely fine for the black player. Mating is difficult, yeah, because most of the black pieces are quite solid. Plays rook b1, good move for white, because oftentimes when you have these weaknesses, the best way is to counterbalance it with play against the king. Rook b1 takes, rook takes b7. Now, I don't know, are you guys familiar with football, or as Americans say, soccer? A yes and no answer would perfect be fitting here. In any case, whenever your opponent's pieces get into the penalty zone, that is the moment you've got to get in the sweeper. If you don't get the sweeper in, then there'll be problems. Because the goalie is hopeless without the defenders coming around. So the sweeper should just come on in and just do anything in his or her power to get rid of that rook on b7. Same thing here. Fortunate chess coach, thank you for rating with a party of 8. Hope you had a good stream. So how can we stop this aggressive messy rook bothering us in this position? Rook c7. And this is the move that wasn't played by Kasper, but really should have. Because you've got to stop your opponent from scoring. You've got to. So if your opponent ever gets their rook on the 7th or the 2nd, if you're white, you've got to be and play the sweeper. Just get the guy in there to stop all the action. And objectively, this would have been just a very good position for black. White goes here. You can always play knight f8. And as Bent Larsen would say, once the knight lands on f8, there's no checkmate. Ever. Period. Never, ever. So that is one of those deals that you've got to remember. No mate. Once the knight is on f8, no checkmate. Yep, exactly. I did not notice, but Brian the Rabbit actually pointed out correctly. Exactly. Knight on f8, no checkmate. So rook c7, just always remember this soccer and football analogy. You've got to get rid of your opponent's attacking pieces. No time for hesitation. Now, Kasper played f5, which is a little dodgy. It's not that bad. In fact, one of my coaches told me that f5 is either a brilliant way of defending or a terrible one. Now, it does cover some important squares, but the e6 pawn can become a terrible weakness. Thank you, Fortuna Chess Coach. Saying, hope you have a great stream. Love your analysis. Thank you. Appreciate it. Also, thank you for the raid. f5, queen h4, very good move by Vlad. He's trying to eye these guys. And still rook c7 is begging to be played. Maybe not as much anymore, but still, you would want to get rid of these attackers. Also, rook c1 would run into this not too ugly back rank checkmate. So here Kasper played the correct knight f8. However, there was one trick that I think both of the players missed. This knight is defending the h7 square, but there is one little square that is undefended. What is that little square? That doesn't have that many defenders. Not many pieces covering it. I'm not talking about sacrifices here. I'm talking about potential squares that are a little bit loose. Just a little bit. Well, the g7 pawn. Because it doesn't have anybody defending it. I mean, the king does, but it's not overprotected like the h7 pawn is. And that is kind of the big and important thing in this position, that you've got it all under control. Not in this game. The g7 isn't overprotected. So if white can put extra pressure on the g7 pawn, he's going to crash through. And once we identify that weakness, it's easy to realize the queen can come here and put pressure on g7. And again, we would check if there's this sweeper idea of rook c7 trying to block it, but it doesn't really work because the e8 rook is hanging. So takes, queen takes e8, and you just resign because you're down the whole rook. Queen h5. The only really good way to defend is to go knight g6. But the next move is very, very nice. This one's very nice. The next move is super nice for white. For this one, I'm even going to rotate the board. It's white to move and win. And it is fantastic because you'd never expect it to happen. Got plenty of pressure here. However, there's no immediate way of crashing through, or at least not just yet. Now if you go here, that would checkmate, but black is not forced by any means to do that. You can just go bishop f8. Or bishop e7, I think. That's also possible. Now, can the h-pawn really move? Alex saying, when you flipped the board, my brain was loading the terrain. I know, rotating is actually kind of a taxing thing to do for the human brain. So you're not alone with that, Alex. Well, if you jump around too much, you might lose that rook on e1. can't quite sacrifice there because there's bishop f8 not only stopping this, but also doing a penalty, like actually a fault on your queen. Not only stopping you, but also kind of injuring your attacker. So rook g7 does not work. Hey there, someday, by the way. Bishop h6, black can again just ignore you. Just defend. The big move is a move that is the hardest in chess. Bishop d2. Which is a brilliant idea. The question is, what is the point of bishop d2? Seemingly it makes no sense. What could be the idea behind it? Yep, clears the g5 square for the knight, and the knight will be overloaded. So this knight was protecting against queen f7 and queen takes g6, queen f7 and queen g7 mate. But after knight g5, it can't move because the knight will be hanging. So if you go here, knight g5, you can't move the pawn because queen g6 and it's mate. And that's a problem. And other than that, you can go back because queen f7 and then you get checkmated this way. Some user says that's a 9000 IQ move, and I agree. And I do agree that is one heck of a move. So this would have been the one sort of clinching it for Vlad. And that's why you need to have that sweeper move in with rook c7. So that didn't happen. Knight f8. We played bishop e7, trying to save the game and put pressure on this knight and getting the knight in. However, this is a big and decisive mistake. It is a brilliant move, right? Rocky Mountain chess. And flippity flip. This was a big mistake with bishop e7. And this runs into some problems. What is the problem here? Yep, knight g6. And suddenly, that knight not only defends, but attacks and double attacks. And it's game over. Because if you go here, rook takes e7, and black is just up a piece with no attack in sight. So knight g6 was a big move by Kasper. But to be honest with you, I am more impressed with that bishop d2 idea for white, which sadly from Vlad's perspective was missed, and which would have won him the game. Yes. So, with that, this was our lecture on the game reviews. So it was this game. And I do hope you guys enjoyed this. We're going to do lots of these next week as well. So if you want to be part of us, do join us. Again, here's the information sheet if you want to join us on Discord, Twitter, or Facebook. We are mostly active on Facebook and Discord. And if you have any chess question there, make sure to ask away. We do talk about many other topics. If you're interested, I'm more than happy to respond. So, this was my game against Christopher Yu, and these were the ones that I really wanted to show you guys. So, with that, I will be signing off shortly. Cruz is saying you missed that. Thanks again for your analysis on your game on the Rapport Jobava. Sure thing, sure thing. Again, I hope that we can do something with the Rapport Jobava soon. I do have videos out there. So if you just search Rapport Jobava, you'll find it on the internet with the St. Louis Chess Club. So I think you can check that one out. With that, I hope you get a very good day and hope you had a fun time looking at the sub games. And hope to see you guys pretty soon. Bye bye.